So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. You back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Thursday, April 15th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is in fact April 15th here today. We are now exactly 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. In the NFL, obviously, Jets hold the number 2 overall pick. Giants hold the number 11th overall pick. And in the Jets, their second pick in the first round of the draft is the 23rd overall pick, which we got in the Seahawks trade from Jamal Adams Seahawks trade. So obviously, super exciting to know that the NFL draft is only 2 weeks away. We're going to be having a lot more NFL stuff coming up on the podcast. Obviously, my full first round mock draft. Obviously, just some other stuff with the NFL draft. Where's Justin Fields and Mac Jones going to go? And to be honest, it's still a big question on what the Giants are going to do number 11 overall. That's one of the big questions of what the Giants are going to do number 11 overall. Are the Giants going to go, if Devontae Smith is going to there, are they going to go wide receiver? Are they going to go linebacker? Are they going to go offensive line? Are they going to go edge rusher? What are the Giants going to do with their number 11th overall pick? There's been some rumors, too, that they might trade back. What are the Giants going to do? That's a big question, and one of the bigger question marks in the draft. We know what the Jets are going to do. We're going to go as quarterback. I can 99% sure that it's going to be Zach Wilson. We know what obviously the Jaguars are going to do. That's the easiest decision in a long time. We already know that. But number 11 with the Giants, it's for you, first off, you got to see how the first 10 picks play out, and then it's your pick. So you very well could go in with a plan, and the guy that you thought was going to be there, he could be off the board, early. So it's definitely an interesting pick, obviously, because the first 10 picks have got to play out, so you can't really have that stable, because you could say, oh, we're set on this guy, but that guy could get taken way before you. So obviously, it's going to be fun. I'm excited for it. A lot of good draft stuff coming up here on the podcast. To recap yesterday in sports, it's just another day for the New York Yankees of bad baseball. I mean, what can I tell you? It's the same thing. It's been the same thing for about 7 games now out of the 12 because we are 5-7. It's been terrible. It's been pretty much everything that could have went wrong has went wrong for the New York Yankees. And really, at the beginning of the year, you look at this roster, you look at this lineup, and you look at the revamped pitching rotation, or what they thought was a revamped pitching rotation, you're thinking, man, this team did get slightly better. But now you're sitting here, 12 games into the year, and no, we're not playing good. I know it's only 12 games in, but still, this is bad. It's a terrible start. And I mentioned this yesterday on the podcast. You always want to start off strong. That's in any sport. That's in NHL, especially NFL, because 5 games into the year, those are pivotal. If you start off 1-4, you're more than likely not going to the playoffs. That's how much 5 games go. The NFL, you don't have the excuse of, oh, it's only 1 or 2 games. You don't have that excuse. Because the NFL, by the 6th game of the season, you have a really good, you really know if you're going to be in the playoffs or if you're not going to be. You don't have that excuse in the NFL. If 3 games in, you can't say, oh, it's only 3 games into the year. No. It's 3 games is very important in the NFL. In the MLB, yes, you can say that. But the Yankees just don't look good. And it's super concerning. And I said this yesterday. You don't want to start off slow and have to climb the rest of the year. You don't want to have an uphill climb the rest of the year. The Yankees, that's the last thing we need, is to be hovering around 500 the entire year. That's the last thing we need. Teams like the Blue Jays and the Rays, and they've got our number. I mean, the Blue Jays, they've won 2 series against us this season. They won opening day series, and then they won last series that concluded yesterday. So the Yankees have a day off today. They better get stuff straight because this team looks ugly, and it does not look good at all. And I don't want to use that same excuse 12 games in because it all started in the offseason. I've mentioned this plenty of times. We don't do enough in the offseason to get a true World Series team. So we'll see how it plays out with the New York Yankees. Nets got a tough loss yesterday. I'm not really surprised at all about us losing. I mean, when you have KD out, when Harden's out, when Blake Griffin's out, Obviously, there's some news on Lamarcus Aldridge today that we'll get to later on. He was obviously out, but he's announced retirement. I'll tell you why in a little bit here. With a lot of those guys being out, all those just injuries and some of the stuff like that. We didn't expect to win that game yesterday, but I'll tell you what, they did make it interesting late. It was a game when we were losing 112-90. You're sitting there watching that game like, oh, all right, to move on to the next game, and all of a sudden the Nets come storming back, and we only lose by 6. So yes, we lost pretty bad, but it didn't look as bad after all. So tough loss for the Nets. What can I say? The biggest game of the season, and not many players are playing. It's super frustrating, but hopefully we can turn the page in our next game and get the win. So we'll see how it plays out. Nets, there's only a couple games left in the year. I believe there's only like 16 games left, I think, or something like that. And the Rangers only have 16 games left. So NHL and NBA, yet it's exciting this time of year because you got the teams that are battling for playoff spots. Like the Rangers, they still got meaningful games to play. And, my favorite team, the Nets, in basketball, we're getting excited for the playoffs. So a lot of good action coming up in the NBA and the NHL. Today, we obviously got the Rangers play. The Yankees have a day off, like I mentioned. Mets have an early game today. So we will obviously see how all those games go. But yes, with all that being said, let's get into the topics for today. Jadavian Clowney signs with the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns have, I would say, taken the top free agent available, probably off the board. As Jadavian Clowney has signed a 1-year, $8 million contract with the Cleveland Browns. As the Cleveland Browns, not only with this deal, boost their roster, but they have made some NFL history. It might not be... It's just because how I am. I love the interesting numbers, but there's a special thing about this signing with the Cleveland Browns that I'll tell you in a little bit. Good move for the Browns. I really think this will definitely help them, and I will tell you how Jadavian Clowney can help them. Jadavian Clowney, obviously last season, didn't have a great year. He didn't record a sack, but you could also say that he only played 8 games, so you could be on either side of the argument. He did come off of with the Seahawks. He played all the way through the playoffs that year with the Seahawks. With a groin injury, he had to get surgery on that in the offseason. Last season, I don't think it was fully 100%. I think he was playing through it a little bit. So now this year, he finally got a full season of rest and stuff like that. Full offseason. I think he should be ready to go for the Cleveland Browns. So a very big move for the Browns, and arguably took the best free agent remaining off the board. So Jadavian Clowney gets signed by the Browns. This caught me by surprise today. I was not expecting this. I don't think many people were expecting this, but Lamarcus Aldridge retires from the NBA. He found out he had some health issues, so he has called it quits. I guess they say hang up the cleats, but it's basketball, so I guess he's hanging up the shoes or whatever. But, yeah, Lamarcus Aldridge has announced retirement. His long, very successful NBA career has come to an end. So we've seen, Julian Edelman retired. Now we see Aldridge retire. We saw a couple months ago, we saw Rivers and Breeze retire. So a lot of pretty big name athletes out there have decided to call it quits. So Lamarcus Aldridge has decided to retire. It was not his choice. He kind of had to because of some of his health issues. I'm sure if it was up to him, he would still play, but he has decided to call it quits. Obviously, the Nets signed him. The Spurs released him, bought out his contract. Nets went ahead and signed him. At first, I was kind of like, we're signing him. He's older now, but he made a big impact for the Nets in the couple games he played with us. So he has officially announced retirement. I do strongly believe he will be a Hall of Famer. Even though he didn't get the championship under his belt, I do believe he will be a Hall of Famer. Then we'll finish it off with New York Sports Update. As always, the good New York Sports Update as always. So we got the Nets today, or the Nets have a day off, Rangers today, I meant. Rangers today, Islanders play today, Yankees have a day off, Mets have a game today. So a much-needed day off for the New York Yankees. Hopefully we can get straightened up here because we need it, Judge yesterday had a great game. He hit 2 home runs, including that one monster shot that I still don't believe was only 402 feet. And the reason I say that is because the center field wall at Dunedin, Florida, TD Ballpark, which is the home of the Blue Jays for right now, obviously because of Toronto's shut down, the center field wall there is 400 feet. Judge's home run cleared that wall and almost left the stadium. There's no way it only went 402. So, but still, home run's a home run. Judge had a good game. Rest of the Yankees team can't hit. Hicks, why is he batting first? That's completely besides me. But yeah, much needed day off for the Yankees. Rangers continue their playoff chase today as they have a second game of a 4-game series against the Devils. Looking for another win, looking for another opportunity to get a win. Like I said, this is a great opportunity to win 4 games here for the New York Rangers, and hopefully we get it done. So, with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So, ex-Titans defensive end Jadavian Clowney agrees to a reported 1-year, $8 million Browns contract. So, defensive end, edge rusher, whatever you want to call him, Jadavian Clowney has officially agreed to sign with the Cleveland Browns as the Browns make yet another acquisition. If you look at their acquisitions over the past couple seasons, they've done a lot to this team. They've done a lot to one of the worst. They had one of the worst teams of all time in NFL history, the 0-16 team. Since then, they've really took this roster, took this organization, and have completely took it and ran with it, and they've been very well, and they've done a very good job at rebuilding this team. It all started with getting Baker Mayfield, the firing of Hugh Jackson, bringing in Kevin Stefanski, getting Myles Garrett, obviously, now signing Jadavian Clowney, getting guys like Odell Beckham, although he hasn't been great, but Jarvis Landry has been decent with them, drafting guys like Nick Chubb, Denzel Ward. There's been plenty of guys going out there and getting guys like Sheldon Richardson, and now going out there and getting Jadavian Clowney. So I got to give it to the Browns. As much as it's funny to see as much as you might think the Browns as the laughingstock of the league, they aren't anymore. They aren't anymore the laughingstock of the league. And I do sometimes beat up on the Browns, I will admit. I do. But I got to give credit where credit's due. The Browns organization has done a phenomenal job rebuilding this. And there's a lot of teams out there that should honestly look at what the Browns did and kind of use that as, you know what, we got to almost do that. The Browns did this the right way. They took what was one of the worst teams we've ever seen in NFL history and completely tore it down. Most of those guys in that roster either got released, or you had a guy like Joe Thomas and all them, they all retired, right? Most of the guys on that roster are no longer on the Browns. They completely tore it down. They tore it down. They went through the draft, drafted Baker Mayfield, who I'm not a huge fan of, but I got to give credit where credit's due. He had a very good year this year, and he does seem to be progressing. And then you obviously get guys like Myles Garrett. You obviously now add Jadavian Clowney, add a veteran in Sheldon Richardson. You obviously got Odell Beckham, who, you know, hasn't been the most successful with the team, but, I mean, it's just another big name. Then you have Landry, and guys like that. And obviously, you know, Denzel Ward, some other guys on defense like, you know, Olivier Vernon, and those guys like that, who obviously came over in the Odell trade. But you did lose some guys too. But the Browns have done this the right way. The Browns have built through the draft, getting guys like Nick Chubb, you know, getting guys like Nick Chubb and Baker Mayfield and Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and those guys like that. They've built through the draft very well. And they've also went out and signed some guys. And they make another splash here, signing Jadavian Clowney. And I want to say this about Jadavian Clowney. I understand that he did not have a great year last year. I get that. He played 8 games for a guy that has had a 9.5 sack season in his career, did not get a single sack last season. I get that. I understand. Believe me. And he is getting slightly older in his career. He's 28, I believe, now. But I mean, he's been in the NFL for 5-6 years now, I believe. He's got experience, which is good for a younger defensive line. Myles Garrett's still very well. He's still young. I mean, he got drafted 2-3 years ago. He's still young. But I think it's a great move for the Browns. I think it's a great move. And I understand, obviously, he struggled last season. You know, the only 8 games, and, you know, obviously the season before that, he played 13 games with the Seahawks. Other than that, though, he's had some good seasons where he played 16 games, 15 games, and things like that. But I know a lot of people are going to focus on what he did last season and automatically judge him off of that. They're automatically going to go ahead and say, I'm going to judge him off of this. I'm going to judge him off of 8 games in a weird season, let alone the fact that the Titans missed 2 weeks of the season because they had an outbreak. I don't think you can really judge him off of last season. He also, last year, I feel like kind of got thrown into the situation in Tennessee. He was looking for a team, no one was getting him. he kind of signed with the Titans and kind of just settled there. He kind of just settled. He didn't really, I don't think he was fully in on going to the Titans. I think he just found a deal. He went to a winning team. He kind of took it, but it just wasn't the right fit. And with the Seahawks, he did well, but an injury late in the year hurt him. And that's another thing too. I don't think you can judge him all of last season off of his 8 games because he was playing through a groin injury in which he said that he needed to take, he said that he could barely walk. He was struggling with a groin injury. I don't know if you remember it, but in the playoff games against the Packers, that game, you could tell him he was limping really badly, but he went out there, fought, and he tried to win. The Seahawks didn't end up winning. This wasn't last season. This was the year before that. This was the year the Niners and Chiefs faced off in the Super Bowl. And he obviously had a bad groin injury. Then going into the offseason, he had to get surgery, which is why I think part of his free agency stock kind of dropped a little bit, because I think he got some surgery. They figured, you know what? I don't know if I want to take a risk on a guy like that. The Titans did. He struggled a little bit. But one thing I love about this move, too, if I was a Browns fan, I'm not, but if you're a Browns fan, one thing you got to like about this move, too, is you're getting a guy who, at times, looks like one of the better defensive players in the league, one of the better defensive ends in the league, especially when he was with the Texans. Him and J.J. Watt were one of the best 1-2 punches we saw that year. Or those couple of seasons there, his little run in tennis in Houston, him and J.J. Watt were so good. They were so good together. And then obviously went to the Seahawks, had a solid year, and obviously now joined the Titans and now here. But you're getting a guy in Jadavian Clowney who signed a 1-year, $8 million deal. You're getting a guy who is a former first overall pick, and a guy who also, not only a former first overall pick, but a guy who also could possibly give you, when healthy, some of the better defensive performances out there, and you're only going to pay $8 million for him. So there's a chance the Browns got an absolute steal for Jadavian Clowney. They only gave him 1 year, $8 million, when last season he was asking for a lot more, but due to his struggles last year in only 8 games, obviously teams aren't going to spend as much on him. But I'll tell you what, if he plays like anywhere he did in Houston, he did have a solid year with the Seahawks, you're getting a steal for a guy that signed a only 1 year, $8 million deal. And what you're getting out of Jadavian Clowney, and I say this a lot with pass rushers, I said this with the Jets' new pass rusher, Carl Lawson, it's great and all if you can get sacks, that's great, right? We all love to see a sack, we do, especially people who like defensive games. You like games where the quarterback's on the ground a lot, right? You do. Now, if you're a fan of offense, you don't, because you want to see a fast-paced game. But back to my point here with Jadavian Clowney, this is a guy who's quick off the line of scrimmage. Very quick off the line of scrimmage. And if he's very quick off the line of scrimmage. So what that means is, with him being quick off the line of scrimmage, he gets up, he gets in the quarterback's face very quickly. And he might not get the sack that play, but he's going to rush the quarterback getting his throw. And I've always talked about that. Stats are great and all. A lot of times I judge players off of what their stats are, but some of it's the eye test. So he might have the quarterback rush his throw. That won't go down in the stat book. It might go down as a quarterback pressure, but if the quarterback throws the ball away really quickly, that's not going to go down as a stat book. That's eye test. So that's very good by Jadavian Clowney. He gets off the line of scrimmage too. And another thing too, recently he's developed a really strong run defense, which is what Sheldon Richardson has done there. He's right up front in the heart of that defensive line, stopping the run. Jadavian Clowney, he still can sack, he still can get to the quarterback, but I think now that he is getting slightly older, and he has had some injuries in the groin and stuff like that in areas where that's really going to affect you, especially in a sport where you're running a lot. You're using, really, it's the truth. For a sport that you're doing a lot of different movements, to have a groin or a leg injury definitely hurts you a lot. So I feel like he's moved into, and last season he had a very good year, a really good run stuffer. So now you have a Myles Garrett who can pass rush. You got Sheldon Richardson who's right up front in the heart of that defense line that's run stuffing. Guy gets right into it. The amount of times we see Sheldon Richardson, a run go up the middle, Sheldon Richardson always blows it up. And then obviously with Jadavian Clowney now, who can rush the quarterback, but recently has really developed solid run defense. And I think that's because of some of his injuries, and he's had to adapt to some different things. So I want to read you this stat. It's not really a stat. It's just kind of a crazy thing. So obviously, obviously being a first overall pick is obviously big and all. But let me get this stat up here. I thought this stat was pretty crazy. Okay, so Jadavian Clowney to Cleveland Browns to Cleveland becomes an historic acquisition. So for only the 5th time, a roster will feature at least 3 former number 1 overall picks. So for the 2021 Browns, it's Jadavian Clowney, obviously got selected in 2014. Myles Garrett, as I mentioned earlier, 2017. And he obviously got Baker Mayfield, 2018. Then the 2000, Washington has done it twice. They did it in 2000, where they had Irving Fryer, 1984. Then you had Bruce Smith, 1985. Jeff George, 1990. And then Dan Wilkinson, 1994. And then the next one was 2001 Washington, where Bruce Smith was still on that team. Dan Wilkinson, Jeff George, and then Kijana Carter. And in 1978, 1998 Raiders, Jeff George, who was with the Redskins, also obviously went to the Raiders. Then you had Russell Maryland and Andre Bruce. Obviously, Bruce Smith was a big name as well. So obviously, you got the Browns, then the 2 Raiders teams, and you got the 2 Washington teams, which equals 5 times in NFL history. So 3 former first-round picks. So you can't say the Browns don't got a lot of talent. And you talk about building through the draft. The Browns drafted Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield. They didn't draft Clowney. He got drafted from Houston. But, the Browns have built through the draft. Obviously, 2 first overall picks on their team. They've built through the draft. And obviously, they've had a successful time with it. They've had a successful run with it, obviously there. So, and obviously, I feel like I'm not comparing Jadavian Clowney to Bruce Smith. Bruce Smith is one of the better defenders to go down as all time. But Jadavian Clowney's most successful part of his career was with Houston. He was really good there. Same thing with Bruce Smith. He was most successful with the Bills. He went to Washington. He was not as successful in Washington. He was still solid, but he was most known for his time with the Bills. And that was obviously through those Super Bowl runs where they had a really solid defense and, obviously all the good offensive players on that team as well. So, Jadavian Clowney, historic acquisition. So let's get into this article here. Ex-Titans defensive end Jadavian Clowney agrees to reported 1-year, $8 million Browns contract. Jadavian Clowney is on the move again after officially agreeing to a deal with the Cleveland Browns on Wednesday. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport first reported the 28-year-old would sign a 1-year contract with the Browns. Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports added that Clowney's deal is worth $8 million with an additional $2 million in incentives. Clowney was a late signing last offseason before coming to terms on a 1-year, $12 million contract with the Tennessee Titans in September. The 3-time Pro Bowler had the worst season of his career in 2020 with 0 sacks and 8 starts before being placed on injury reserve in November. Originally drafted number 1 overall by the Houston Texans in 2014, his career has been marred by inconsistency. He looked like a budding star from 2016 to 2018 when he made 3 consecutive Pro Bowls and registered 24.5 sacks in 45 games. After failing to come to terms on a long-term contract with the Texans after the 2018 season, Clowney was traded to the Seattle Seahawks in August of 2019. He didn't boost their pass rush, though he did lead the team with 13 quarterback hits and tied for second with 7 tackles for a loss in 13 games. See, I don't know how he didn't boost the defense if he led the defense in a lot of categories or was top 5 in the defense in a lot of categories. He had a solid year with the Seahawks. He did. He had a solid year with the Seahawks. Pro Football Focus ranked Clowney as the number 31 player in the 2021 free agency class, noting he finished 19th out of 112 qualified edge rushers thanks to his ability to disrupt the passing game and effectiveness in the running game. Like I said, he's built really good run defense over his career here. Given his age and ability to impact the running game, the USC product is a solid buy low player for the Browns as they look to make the postseason in 2021. Clowney isn't the type of player who can anchor a defensive line, but he does enough things well and still has plenty of upside to be a good addition. The Browns are an excellent landing spot for Clowney. He doesn't have to be a focal point in order for the defense to be good in 2021. Clowney should also benefit from playing the Olivier Vernon role on Cleveland's defense line this season. Vernon was acquired by the Browns in March of 2019 after a disappointing year with the New York Giants. He struggled in his first year with the team, but he racked up 9 sacks in 2020 playing opposite Myles Garrett. Garrett is going to command so much attention from opposing coaches that it opens up holes for other players on the Browns' defensive line to rack up sacks. Clowney's athleticism and run defense will an assist for the team. Will be an asset for the team. But his ability to get after the opposing quarterbacks will determine his ceiling this season. The Browns are taking steps to get even better in 2021 after making the playoffs last season. They are in an excellent position to challenge the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens for the AFC North crown. So it's the truth. I don't like the Steelers. I'm not just saying that because I don't like them. But to be honest, the AFC North, if I had to choose, it's going to be the Ravens and the Browns really battling it out. It's going to be. Because the Steelers are, if this year, if they go like 10-6 and barely slip into the playoffs and they get crushed first round, well, the Steelers are near a massive rebuild because they, I feel like, are too focused on what has happened than what should. Like the Steelers are in a very tough situation. Bringing Big Ben back, that makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense. So, if you had to ask me, I would say it's going to be the Browns and the Ravens really neck and neck battling it out. And then it would be your Steelers and then Bengals, the rest of the division there. I'm not saying the Bengals are going to win the division or be in the race, but I definitely think the Bengals are going to have an improved year, especially whatever they do in the draft. Because you got to realize they got Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon. They still got to build up the offensive line. It's got to be better, but what do the Bengals do? Do they go Jamar Chase or do they go offensive line? I would say go offensive line only because offensive line is important. You can have as many weapons as you want around you. If you have no time to throw it, that's a problem. But at the same time, Joe Burrow has played with Jamar Chase at LSU, and they already have chemistry. So there's so many different options. There's so many different things you could do. But I really think that it's going to be the Ravens and the Browns who win a division. Now, I'm not going to say who's going to win a division because we're sitting here in April. We still got to see what the draft does, the schedule. But I'm going to say the AFC North this season will probably be the Browns and the Ravens. I don't think the Steelers will be competitive, but I don't think they're really going to be that much in the conversation. They could be, they might be, but I think it's going to really come down to the Browns and the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and guys like that. That should be fun. As we saw last year, the Browns and the Ravens were really fun to watch. That one game, they played with Lamar Jackson left because of cramps, or at least that's what they said. No one really knows. Then he came back into the game, and they ended up winning it. That was a fun game to watch. That was the Monday night game, I believe. So a lot more of those would be super fun. The AFC North, I feel like the AFC North's got a bright future to be a really good division. You obviously got a young, talented team in the Ravens. Obviously, you got a team in the Browns that's still young and talented, and obviously adding Jadavian Clowney helps. And then you got the Bengals, who are going through a rebuild, but they got Joe Burrow, who is going to be a really good quarterback, I think. Work through the draft, continue to build. They're going to be a good team, too, in a couple seasons, I believe. So, obviously, there's a lot of good talent in the AFC North. And then, obviously, the Steelers are eventually going to have to enter a rebuild. But I do think it's going to probably be the Browns and the Ravens. So let's just take a quick look here at Jadavian Clowney Stats. Then we'll get on over to the next topic. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, he's 28 years old. So he has been around a little bit. This season, he had 14 tackles, no sacks, a forced fumble, no interceptions. Obviously, got drafted 2014. He played 5 seasons with the Texans. He's played 7 overall, 5 of them with the Texans. It's been most recent where he's bounced around a little bit. Obviously, went to the Texans, then the Seahawks, then the Titans, and now here with the Browns. So that's what happens in sports. I mentioned this a couple days ago. Julian Edelman, actually, I was talking about. It's one of the most difficult things to do in sports. It might be one of the more difficult things to do on an individual level, is stay with the same team your entire career. It is very difficult to stay with the same team your entire career. You very rarely see it. It's very rare. And obviously, a lot of times, if you're going to stay with the same team, you're going to sign a big-time extension, which is what the Texans offered him, but he obviously declined it and went to the Seahawks. I didn't think he had a bad year with the Seahawks. I thought he did fairly fine. I mean, he had 3 sacks. He didn't have a great year, but he still forced 4 fumbles. 4 fumbles forced, which was his best in his career. That's the highest. So, he's definitely solid. I mean, he's a solid acquisition. And like I said, if he could turn anywhere where he was with the Texans in those little, stretches, give you 4 sacks this season, 4.5, 5 sacks, that could be a very good pickup for only $8 million, plus $2 million incentives, but he's got to get those incentives first. So he was out of South Carolina, got picked first overall. There's been a lot of good, if you think about it, there's been a lot of good talent. We obviously saw this year Jadavian Clowney come out of South Carolina. Then obviously you had Clowney come out of there. There's been some recent good defensive talent come out of there. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think it's a good move for the Cleveland Browns and a good low-cost addition that could be a really solid player in the upcoming season. Alrighty, so coming up next, this caught many by surprise, including myself. It caught many by surprise. Lamarcus Aldridge has announced retirement today because of some health issues. Obviously, the Nets picked him up a couple weeks ago. The Spurs cut him or bought him out, which is pretty much the equivalent to releasing him. The Nets picked him up, took a chance on him, and he is now no longer playing NBA. After 15 years in the league and a lot of success, he has decided to retire from the NBA. We'll talk about that coming up next. Alrighty, so Lamarcus Aldridge retires from NBA after 15 years because of irregular heartbeat, which is health issues. Put it down as health issues, some heart stuff. So, yeah, to be honest, there's obviously things that always catch you by surprise in sports. Trades, as free agent signings, anything in sports. A team winning. I'm sure many caught by surprise by maybe, a team winning a game or something. There's a lot of stuff that catches you by surprise in sports. It is. It's sometimes, not in this case, this isn't really good in this case because obviously health issues forced him to retire, but in some cases, the surprising moments in sports are, Roy Williams retiring. That was surprising. We didn't expect him to retire right then and there. This is surprising. Obviously, there's some surprising games out there. There's some surprising moves and trades that no one would have thought would happen. Like, for example, just one off of the top of my head, a move last season with DeAndre Hopkins, that was very surprising. When they traded him to the Cardinals, that was very, very, very surprising. Very just odd move, made no sense at all. This is another one of those surprising things. And it's tough. His career has to come to an end the way it has. Lamarcus Aldridge has announced retirement. So when I first saw this, I at first thought it just meant he was retiring. He was just retiring, just decided not to play basketball anymore. And I was kind of interested, but this was before I knew anything about the health issues. I knew he was out the past couple of games because he had an illness, but I thought what they meant by an illness, I thought it was just, an illness, or he was either in a protocol or a quarantine period where he came in close contact. I just thought it was something like that. The Nets just said it was an illness and stuff like that, so I didn't put much thought into it. I don't think many Nets fans really did, and I don't mean that to be mean. He was down as an illness. I just thought it was one of those things. Players, that sometimes happens to players. Lamarcus Aldridge was. So when I first heard about it today, I was really surprised. I thought he just retired out of the blue. I was kind of confused. This is before I knew anything about the health issues. I was kind of confused that he retired because I was like, he joined a team. He's never won a championship. He joined a team and won a championship. He was actually being pretty successful. Like, why in the world out of the blue would he just retire? And obviously I figured out it was because of obviously all the health issues, and obviously he felt it was best to retire. And, obviously sports are great and all, but at the end of the day, health of the players and people in sports are obviously the top of the coaches and the league. That's the main focus, is the health of the players and stuff like that. That especially in some of these sports, like the MLB. If you stub your toe, you're gonna be on the IL for 10 days. Especially in MLB. Hockey, it's a little different. You could break a leg and you could be back out there on the ice in no time. But anyway, back to this. Especially in the NBA and different leagues like that. If you get injured, if you have health issues, that's going to be the top of their priority. It's going to be the top of it. Obviously, players' health is one of their first focuses, and that's obviously, trying to make sure every player's healthy. Now, the NBA, no control of this, but even just, injuries that happen on the court. Obviously, the goal is to make sure the players are healthy. If you get an injury, you want to make sure that you bring that player back at the right time. So, Lamarcus Aldridge has decided to announce retirement, and it's because of the health issues and stuff like that. And I would be the first to say this. He's a Hall of Famer, I really think. This is a guy who, when the day he got drafted, he came onto the league, did what he needed to do. He was very good. He was a solid player. He's a leader. One of the better big mans out there, not of all time, but I guess you could say. I'm not going to get into the all-time stuff. I don't always like to mention stuff about all-time sometimes, because that's where a lot of people have. There's probably the most disagreements in sports a lot of times come when you talk about an all-time of anything, whether that's all-time big men, all-time point guards, all-time players in any sport. When you talk about something that's all-time, the best play ever, there's always debates on that. You can very rarely agree. So I'm not going to get into the all-time, but when he came onto the league, he was definitely playing really well, and especially when he joined the Spurs. Obviously, he came on with the Trailblazers, played a long time there, and obviously then went to the Spurs, played a good amount of time there. I believe he played like 5 years with the Spurs. He played the first 10 years with the Trailblazers. He played a long time with the Trailblazers. Then about 5 years with the Spurs. And now this season, obviously, he's played a little bit with the Nets. Obviously, he played half the years with the Spurs. They decided to not play him due to his due to his contract issues. And they decided they wanted to get rid of him. So they decided to buy him out. The Nets went out and signed him. And he is no longer in the NBA. So I'm sure for him it's very frustrating. Obviously, just because of the fact that I'm sure he knew. This is one thing I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this. I don't know if he gets a ring. If the Nets win, I don't think he will technically count as a win, because he retired mid-year, which means he's out of the NBA. So it's not like he's out of the NBA. He retired mid-year, he's out of the NBA. So I don't think if the Nets win, I don't think they're going to be like, oh, you won a championship when he wasn't on the team, because he's no longer on the Nets. He retired. He's no longer in the league. So I don't believe he gets a ring. He might, but I don't believe. I've tried to figure that out. No one knows, including myself. I have no clue. So if you know that, comment down below. I would love to hear it. But I don't think he gets a ring if he wins, which is the one thing that's missing in his career. And there's a lot of players out there. They say the single hardest thing to do in sports is to win a championship. One team wins a championship. One team. One team does. Not two, not three, not five. One team does. For that to be your team is very difficult. It's the hardest thing to do in sports. It's one of the hardest things to do overall, is win a championship. A lot of people don't realize how the athletes sometimes make it look easy because of how good they are. The players make it do. Like for example, some of these guys out there, they make it look so easy, but realistically, it's not. So he's never won a championship, but definitely a Hall of Fame career. This was a guy who dominated the paint for a long time. As they call him, he was very good in the post, very good in the paint. I mean, when he got the ball, that 1-2 dribbles and just, the turn and just the floater into the net. I mean, it was just, and that was obviously the beginning of his part of his career. The most recently, he struggled a little bit, but that's because he's gotten older. But the beginning part of his career, and when he joined the Spurs, he was just so good. It was just a lot of what he did, he made it look easy. he was so pure with a lot of his movements. He got the ball. He was a solid rebounder. He put up points, right? He did all that stuff. And there's so much, it's crazy how good he was, especially in the beginning part of his career, because of he came on, he was young, he was hungry. He really did. He came on, he was hungry to win. He wanted to win. And he's mentioned that so many times, and that's why he came to the Nets. He wanted to win a championship. This was a guy, and obviously this might sound like a Captain Obvious answer about any player. Every player wants to win, but he didn't do it. I mean, obviously, everyone's going to want the money and stuff, but he didn't do it so much for the money. He didn't do it for all the individual accolades. He did it because he wanted to win. And he's mentioned that so many times, and I've known a lot about him, but especially since he's joined the Nets, and I know it's a very short stint with the Nets, so you can't even really consider him being a true Net when he's played, 4 or 5 games with us, but still. This is a guy who has had such a good career, and he will go down in the Hall of Fame. He will make the Hall of Fame. I can almost guarantee you that. I would actually strongly disagree if he doesn't make the Hall of Fame. All the All-Star appearances that he has made, he's done a lot of great stuff throughout his career, and this is I'll get the stats up here, but he did a lot of great things, and obviously I'm sure it's frustrating for him, but let's see here. So he's played 5 games with the Nets. He played 5 games with the Nets this season. So he played 5 games. So it can't even say much about that because he barely played with the Nets. So, but either way, I think even without the health issues, he was 35 years old. So his career is coming to the tail end of things. But a center, his career, in his career, he's averaged, in his career, or this season actually, he's 13.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 1.9 assists. And in his career, he's had a very good career. Obviously, in his career, he's played 1,029 games, so he's been through a lot. Obviously, got drafted by the Trailblazers back in 2006. And he played 1, 2, 3 81-game seasons, including one most recently where he was getting older. And, this is a guy who played 1,029 games. He started 985 of those games. So he started a lot of the games he played. And he was very solid. He was a very good player. And a guy who, averaged 19.4 points per game, with the Trailblazers, and then with the Nets this season, put up 12.8, and then with his Spurs, when his run began with the Spurs in 2015, and, blocks, steals, rebounds, he put up about 8.2 rebounds per game. He had about 2 assists per game, 1.1 block. But 19.4 points per game, around 8.2 rebounds. His free throw percentage was about 81. His field goal percentage was solid. He had 49.1, including some seasons where he hit up into the 50s. So, a guy who really had a successful career. And obviously averaged 34.2 minutes per game. A guy who really had a successful career. Had a lot of great things, individual accolades along with team accolades. Obviously, yes, he did not win a championship, but he did get to the playoffs. He has been, to the playoffs. He has been through a lot. So, obviously, for him to go out there and, play like he did night in and night out was really special. And I know he only played 5 games with the Nets, but even with the Nets, he had a couple solid games with the Nets. So, I'm sure it's frustrating for him to have his career end like this, but at the end of the day, you got to look back on how good of a career he had during those 15 years. He had a lot of great moments throughout his career. So Lamarcus Aldridge retires from the NBA after 15 years because of health issues. 7-time All-Star Lamarcus Aldridge has retired from the NBA due to issues stemming from an irregular heartbeat, health issues, whatever you want to say. He sent out a little bit of a letter. Aldridge explained Thursday he played during the team's 126-101 loss to the Los Angeles Lakers on April 10th while dealing with an irregular heartbeat. He said that he's better now, but it wasn't good. I mean, it didn't feel good at all. ESPN's Lamika Andrews shared a statement from the Nets GM, Sean Marks, who said the team fully supports Lamarcus' decision. This was the GM, Sean Marks, of the Nets. This is what he said today. The Nets organization fully supports Lamarcus' decision, and while we value what he has brought to our team during his short time in Brooklyn, his health and well-being are far more important than the game of basketball. We know this was not an easy decision for him, but after careful consideration and consultation Consultation with numerous medical experts, he made the best decision for him, his family, and for his life after basketball. We wish Lamarcus, Kia, and their family much health and happiness going forward. So that's what That's what GM Sean Marks said. Aldridge was limited to 63 games as a rookie in 2006-2007 after he was suffering from dizziness and a rapid heartbeat during a game against the Los Angeles Clippers. Doctor diagnosed him with an issue. According to the Mayo Clinic, the condition is rare. He's had some heart issues before, so I guess this was kind of just the best thing for him to do. In his prime, the 35-year-old was one of the NBA's premier power forwards. Sportsnet noted he's one of the 14 players in league history to finish with at least 19,000 points, 8,000 rebounds, 2,000 assists, and 1,000 blocks. He's third in Portland Trail Blazers history in points, 12,562, and first in rebounds, 5,434. When injuries derailed the career of Brandon Roy, Aldridge was the bridge until the Blazers could return to relevancy with Damian Lillard. Aldridge retires having averaged 19.4 points per game, 8.2 rebounds, and 1.1 blocks per game. And while he expanded his offensive repertoire somewhat in the recent seasons, he remained a bit of a throwback by doing most of his damage from mid-range. 7-time All-Star, 19,951 career regular season points. Signing with the Nets allowed him to chase a championship that he eluded with the Trailblazers and San Antonio Spurs. And a title appears to be well within reach for Brooklyn, which is one game behind the Philadelphia 76ers for first place in the Eastern Conference. However, Aldridge will be unable to join his now former teammates in their quest for the NBA Finals. A place in the Hall of Fame could be waiting for the 6'11" big man. In addition to his 7 All-Star appearances, he was an All-NBA player on 5 occasions and made 9 trips to the postseason. His Hall of Fame candidacy might be a toss-up. Basketball Reference puts his probability at 50.9% based on his production and achievements on the court. I think he would probably be a Hall of Famer. First off, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So if you had any impact on basketball, you're in. Let alone he had major success in obviously major success in the NBA. I would say he's probably a Hall of Famer. I would say he probably will make the Hall of Fame. It's a toss-up, but he probably will be. And because there's a lot of players out there who didn't do much and they're in. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. You know, if you made any impact towards basketball, you're pretty much in. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So, a little different there, but, still. A little different, but still, you make a Hall of Fame. I mean, it's a Hall of Fame. You're in the Hall of Fame. That's all that matters. So, great career for him. Obviously, stinks it's got to end this way, but hopefully, 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, NBA All-First, All-Rookie First Team, 19,951 career points, 8,478 total rebounds. So, hopefully, he can get all of his situations figured out. But a very solid career for him. Alrighty, so let's move into the New York Sports Update. Yesterday, the Nuggets won, Mavericks won, Pacers won, Warriors won, Clippers won, Magic won, Knicks won, Raptors won, Cavs won, Bucks won, and Wizards won. Today, we got yesterday, the Nets lost, 123-117. We moved to 37-18 on the season. We were missing a lot of guys. Not surprised there. Bucks, Hawks, I'll give Bucks the win. Warriors, Cavs, give Warriors the win. Celtics, Lakers, give Celtics the win. Suns, Kings, give Suns the win. So only 4 games on for the NBA. Yesterday, the Ducks won, Golden Knights won, Avalanche won, Flames won, Jets won, and Wild won. And today we've got the Penguins, Flyers. I'll give Penguins the win. Bruins, Islanders, give Bruins the win. Maple Leafs, Jets, give Maple Leafs the win. Lightning, Panthers, give Lightning the win. Hurricanes, Predators, give Hurricanes the win. Capitals, Sabres, give Capitals the win. Blackhawks, Red Wings, give Blackhawks the win. And Stars, Blue Jackets, give Stars the win. Rangers also play today. Rangers come in this game 20-16-6. Devils come in this game 14-21-6. The over-under is 6 for this game. This game comes on today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on MSG. Obviously, the Rangers, 84% of people have them winning, which makes sense. They're obviously the better team here. The Devils are not doing good. One of the worst teams in the NHL. The Rangers are the better team. I'll give the Rangers the win here. As for the MLB, yesterday the Dodgers won, Tigers won, White Sox won, Marlins won, Rangers won, Pirates won, Mets won yesterday 5-1. Great, nice performance by Peterson yesterday, and the hitting was solid. They got 12 hits and 5 runs, so a good win for the Mets there. Red Sox won. Red Sox 9-game winning streak. I believe they're one of the first teams in MLB history to start off 0-3 and then win 9 straight. They're rolling right now. Red Sox won. Giants won, Royals won, Red Sox won again, Brewers won, and Nationals won. Yankees lost yesterday 5-4, moved to 5-7 on the season. Judge, literally, the only guy that hit yesterday, went 2 for 4, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, 2 home runs. I mean, he just... good performance by Judge. Not a great team performance, though. Today we got the Marlins-Braves. This game's going on right now. The Marlins are winning. Although I would probably would give the Braves the win, but if the Marlins are winning, I guess they could try carry through this. Orioles, Marlins, I'll give the Orioles the win. Padres, Pirates, definitely give Padres the win. Red Sox, Twins, Red Sox are rolling, got to give them a win. Mets, Phillies got postponed. White Sox, Indians, I'll give White Sox the win. Orioles, Mariners, I'll give Orioles the win there. Nationals, Diamondbacks, give Nationals the win. Rays, Rangers, give Rays the win. Royals, Blue Jays, give Blue Jays the win. A's, Tigers, give A's the win. And Dodgers, Rockies, give Dodgers the win. So... that's that, and then we'll get into fantasy and close out this podcast. As for fantasy baseball, I'm currently winning 163-49, so going pretty good there. Today I've got going Yerman Mercedes, Jake Cronworth, Gavin Lux, Josh Donaldson, Marcus Semien, Gene Segura. Looks like Donaldson isn't in the lineup. He didn't play. All right, that doesn't help. He didn't play. He's not playing. So we got Semien, Gene Segura. They're not playing. Then we got Whit Merrifield. So actually, I'll make a move here. I'm going to put Matt Olson in for. Actually, no. All right. So then we got Gene Segura. He's not playing as well. But Whit Merrifield, Austin Meadows, Victor Robles, Manuel Margot, Michael Taylor, and Will Smith. And then I've got Chris Paddock on the mound as well. So that's that. Injury update is as followed. I made a move yesterday, so I activated Josh Donaldson off the IL, and I put Alex Bregman on the IL. The Astros placed Bregman on the injury list Wednesday. Brian Taggart of MLB.com reports he's in protocol, so he's on the IL, and I put Donaldson as well. I activated Donaldson and got Mercedes still playing as well. Mercedes has been playing really well. Fantasy basketball, I'm currently losing 762 to 512. Today I got going Trae Young, and Kemba Walker. Trae Young's day-to-day. Young calf is questionable for Thursday's game against the Bucks. Brad Rowland of the PeachtreeHoops.com reports. And as for fantasy hockey, I'm currently winning 57-42. And today I've got going Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, Braden Point, Nicholas Backstrom, Nikola Ehlers, Joe Pavelski, Zach Hyman, and I've got Semyon Varlamov in goal. And Steven Stamkos is still out. Stamkos' lower body won't play Thursday or Saturday against the Panthers. Joe Smith of The Athletic reports, so he is still out. So yeah, Panarin's been big. Panarin's been big. Mika Zibanejad's been big. My goalies have been really playing well. So even though I didn't finish off the season that great, playoffs are going really well right now in fantasy hockey. So it should be good. Panarin, they all play tonight. I like the matchup there. I like that matchup. Really good matchup. Devils, Panarin. He didn't skate this morning because of maintenance, but he is playing. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. It was another good podcast in the books. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.